So, my name is Kurt, and this is Global Swim Chat, coming up with a new name for it. And I'm here today with Carien and Colleen from Amanzi Swim School. And hi guys. And just really quickly, I'd like to get you guys to introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about what Amanzi is all about.
Hi Kurt, I'm Colleen. I'm one of the directors for Amanzi Swim Centre. My background is actually in the scuba diving industry. I worked actively as a PADI course director for close to 20 years. And PADI Swim was introduced to us, and that's how we basically got affiliated with Starfish Aquatics. And about 4 years ago, we decided that we're going to do our instructor trainer program with SCI. And from there on, we opened up our swim center, which is based in Johannesburg in South Africa. And we teach from 6-month-old babies all the way to adults. I think the oldest person we've taught so far is 77-year-old. And we've got a fantastic variety of customers. We've got about 260 swimmers that visit our center on a weekly basis.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty much what she said. Hi, my name's Carien. I'm also the co-owner. My background was more in school teaching, primary school teaching. So now I'm still teaching, very passionate about it, just a different subject. So, and love it. Love the diversity, love the range of students, the different aspects of the swim school that we're dealing with on a daily basis.
You're going to have some background noise, unfortunately.
And that's okay. Is that a bird?
Yeah, that's our parrot, one of them.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, so Carien, you were saying.
Yeah, at the moment, I shifted over the past 4 years from teaching the smaller ones, and I basically teach mostly adults at the moment. So the adults, we teach 2 at a time with one instructor or one-on-one. It depends on what they prefer. But we have a wide variety of different customers. I mean, some of the backgrounds, and these are all adults. Like one of the ladies that I've had is terrified of water, absolutely terrified, because when she was a child living in a rural area, a group of friends were walking home, and obviously the distances that they have to walk from school to home is quite far, and there was a pothole in the road, and the previous night it had rained and filled up with water. So one of the friends fell into the hole and nobody knew what to do. So they literally just stood there and watched her drowning. So a lot of the adults have previously bad experiences. Culturally in the Black communities as well in South Africa, you know, a lot of them, the grandmothers raise them and they basically get told, if you go into the water, you're going to die. That's it. So there's that preconceived or that idea of that built-in fear from as a child about water. So it's literally going back to basics and just talking to them, motivating them, literally getting them just to take that first step into the pool.
Yeah. And
it's so rewarding because you can, just every small thing that they achieve is such a privilege to watch, because it's, you know, to a lot of people it'll seem like something small, but to them, you know, it's a whole new world that's opened up. They're able to go to a pool with their family on holiday, and they don't have to just sit and watch everybody. They can join in the pool. They can spend family time with their children. So it's just, it opens up so many different facets, and also just that built-in fear that they've had, just to overcome that. And in their mind, if I've overcome this, what else can I achieve? Yep. As a human being? So it's extremely rewarding. And as I said, such a diverse group of people with different backgrounds.
What you're saying is very much resonating, because that's a lot of what I'm doing here in New Zealand with the tertiary education students. Okay. So we're getting people who are undergraduates, but also graduate students of various ages. And we have had people who have purposely said, we're going to do this, and gotten into the water, and they're petrified because they've had a traumatic experience, with family members being deceased, etc. And they were going to do it. And in one session, we got them floating on their back. The, what's the word I'm looking for? The accomplishment of just that, in that one session, you can see the change in the person. So yeah, I'm getting exactly what you're saying. So just full disclosure beforehand, we met at the SAI program in the States, did our training there, spent 3 weeks together. So yeah, we know each other a bit already. Yep. Yeah, so one of the things I want to talk to you guys about today, because I know about your swim center, and also full disclosure, you guys built your swim center from complete scratch. And that's something I'd really like to kind of big up there, because when we were together in the States, there wasn't even ground broken yet, was there? Yeah. It was still kind of a twinkle in the eye, and this is what we're going to do. Exactly. But nothing had happened yet. And watching,
a dream or vision.
It was a dream, and watching over the years as to, we've broken ground, and now there's a facility in your backyard, and a sizable one at that, and all of that. So just, I'm always inspired by that as well.
Thank you. Very big learning curve.
I can only imagine. But speaking to what we want to talk about today, a lot of what I deal with is the idea of diversity and inclusion in aquatics, which you've already been speaking to a bit already, and it sounds like it's a lot of what you do. So one of the things I want to ask you is, well, obviously it is part of what you do because you've already said that. How do you approach it? Are there things that do you purposely think about diversity when you're actually delivering and designing your programs?
It's actually come very naturally to us. I think in South Africa, I don't know if you've heard them ever talking about the Rainbow Nation. So we've got a very, very diverse group of people living in our country with 11 official languages, different religions, different cultures. And I think for us, it's just the norm. So no, we didn't specifically design something to cater for the different cultures. We just basically created a nice, warm, loving, and accepting facility where anybody could come. It didn't matter what your religion was, what your color was, what your culture was. We wanted to make sure that we opened our facility to everybody that wanted to learn about water safety. And there's a real need for it in South Africa. Yeah. And perhaps we, by default, managed to get a quite diverse group of staff members working with us. So we can facilitate some of the languages that are spoken in South Africa, predominantly English and Afrikaans. And then we have in the past had to use the parent as a translator for kids that are not at a point where they're comfortable to speak English and Afrikaans yet. But because we take such small groups in our pool, it's quite easy to accommodate that. We just get the parent to pull up a chair next to the pool side, and the instructor will demonstrate and talk. It will be explained to the kid. We get the other kids to do it first, and then they will typically copy. So it's actually been a very natural transition for us to open the swim school in terms of diversity. It just happened automatically. And if you were to come to our facility, it literally is a rainbow swim school.
Just to add to that as well, in terms of our staff, I always tease and say this was the most expensive online shopping I'd ever done, because this property I didn't see before I bought it. I just saw the online pictures. We were in Indonesia and Bali at that stage. Right. And I actually asked my dad, he's got some construction background.
Sorry, I'm just going to go stop someone.
Just to come and have a look.
No worries.
And to see what the structure looks like, if it's good. And based on that, we bought the place. So I actually only saw the place for the first time after we purchased it. But when we started here, the previous owner had a gardener that sort of continued with us. He was helping out in the garden, cutting grass, as you could hear in the background. His name is Thomas, and he's originally from Malawi. So at that stage, we could see he's very interested, very curious about what's going on. He was watching the building of the swim school, And as we progressed, we could see that there's a natural curiosity and ambition around the swimming. So we started involving him and saying, Thomas, would you like to learn to swim? And he's like, yeah. So we basically took him from scratch. He learned to swim. When he was at a stage where he was very comfortable and his English was getting better, we actually made him a water washer. So now, 4 years later, about a year ago, Thomas has now completed his swim instructor course, and he's got about 74 of his own students that he teaches on a weekly basis. So, yeah, that's quite a cool story, and yeah.
So that whole empowerment arc, just to mention the water watcher, because some people might not know, is not a lifeguarding certification, but an awareness of water safety certification for non-professionals.
Exactly. And what we do with our water watchers is we get them to sort of like work with the instructor in the water, and we give them the opportunity to start working with basic teaching techniques so that when they do want to do their instructors, they are quite familiar with problem solving already.
Very, very cool. All right. What other questions did I have for you? You guys are just giving me way lots of info. From your team-wise, because you mentioned your team is now very diverse as well. Is there anything that you think about in working in your diverse team? Because again, I think it's going to be a similar thing where you're used to working in diversity, so it comes very naturally to you. Is there anything that you think about from a business point of view or from your team point of view when you're working with diversity at your swim school? How you design things or develop things or schedule things in that regard?
I think from our point of view, there's been one or two challenges when we've been doing our scheduling to decide which of our instructors would fit best with certain students. So some of the issues that we have had is that we've had kids, as I said, that maybe cannot speak a word of English, but they can speak Afrikaans. And so either myself or Carien or Chrissy, who are fluent in Afrikaans, would ideally that candidate. So if we can accommodate a certain language, obviously it's a much quicker learning experience for the student because we don't have to translate and so on. And we've had many discussions about having male and female instructors and whether or not a parent would be okay with the fact that their little girl is swimming with Thomas, who's a male instructor. Yeah. And it was quite surprising because about 4 months ago, we had a bit of a changeover in staff, and one of our female instructors moved on to become a teacher. So she accepted a full-time position. And we actually then started allowing Thomas to take over a lot of the classes. And there was one particular group on a Wednesday. It was a whole group of little girls that were swimming with this particular female instructor. And I contacted the parents and had a conversation with them and said to them, you've got a choice now. You either stay with Thomas, which at that stage was co-teaching the Wednesday classes with the female instructor.
So they knew him.
So they knew him. They'd been working with him for several months. Or they could move over to Chrissy, who had some openings. And there was not one single parent who took their kids away from Thomas. They all opted to stay with him. And I must say that was something that was very heartwarming to me as well, because we're talking about different cultures, all little girls, and they stuck with Thomas because they really love him as an instructor. So it shows you that those type of boundaries with education can be overcome. If you get to know someone and you understand that person's passion for what they're doing, then it doesn't matter what culture they are, what color they are, or if they're male or female. The bottom line is they're a good swim instructor, and your child ultimately benefits from that.
So this might be difficult to answer objectively from your part, but do you think it's actually the way you train Thomas which allowed him to be like that?
A combination of two things.
Do you think he
is a good instructor. He's a good instructor, and I'd like to think that we had quite a bit of that. We had a part in that, I should say. But I think it's also got a lot to do with his personality. I think people have
Right.
just really warmed up to him as an instructor. We're actually very blessed with our team. We've got an amazing group of people that work for us. For example, if you look at Chrissy, who's our other instructor, I've known Chrissy for over 20 years. She used to work with me in the diving industry. And again, her students absolutely adore her. And this is someone that I can really trust. And I think that's something that myself and Carien decided very early on in the business, is we are going to have very capable, trustworthy staff that work for us, and we're going to pay them well, because that is how we're going to keep them at our facility.
Yeah.
And because we've taken care of them, they've definitely taken care of us.
Hmm. Very cool. Carien, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, we've actually now, after Thomas going through that process and seeing how well it's worked for him, we've taken on some other staff as well. Israel is also from Malawi. He's a little bit older. And we've got Tabisile, who is from Durban, KZN in South Africa. So obviously before the lockdown, we started with them. And we like to empower them by just not just wanting them to work with one different skill or thing, but they can all basically do reception, where they receive people. They help the children hand over the little awards, because we work on the armband system. They get 3 armbands.
Okay.
At the end of the lesson, if they manage to keep all 3, they get a little reward. So they do that. We always tease and say, you know, at Amanzi, it's never one person that's got one job. Everybody does everything. So we all jump in and do maintenance. We're all involved in the pool and in training. We're all in the reception. So yeah, that's quite cool. I enjoy doing that, the diversity of it. And also in the situation, if somebody gets sick, it's not like, okay, what are we going to do now? Somebody else can just jump in because they've dealt with it before.
Because we've got the staff, it's quite a small group of staff members. We've got them to work on different days, so that the swimmers also get used to the different instructors, so that when we do have to have a stand-in instructor, it's not an unfamiliar face coming through. So that's been helpful as well.
Very cool. We're blowing the time out of the water on this one.
You heard just now, by the way, they started up the lawnmower. So, okay.
Well, they're busy. They got to keep. They're busy.
Are you able to? Well, that's why I had to go and stop them, because we've got, you know, it's a normal day at Amanzi, except for the fact that we can't swim with the lockdown. But yeah, they're still mowing the lawn, and everybody was still active.
We're also very passionate about going beyond our own walls. In terms of, as Colleen said, it's very diverse in terms of culture and that sort of thing. But in South Africa, as in most countries, I assume, it's also very diverse in terms of financial status. You've got the spectrum of very rich and very poor. And we're also very passionate about crossing that bridge and not just reaching people within our walls that can afford it, but also to reach beyond that.
And that's a good segue to what we were discussing briefly before we went on recording, is the projects that you're doing to try and reach out to people to engage. So I know there are 2 that you were actually working on. Can you mention those?
Yeah, the first one is actually one of the adults that swim with me. She's a 65-year-old lady. She's actually Hindu of religion, very lovely lady. And she started a small business 11 years ago, literally from her living room. And she's built it up to an international business. She's got 3,000 employees. And she decided at the ripe age of 65, she wants to learn to swim. And I take my hat off to her. It's just such a pleasure having seen her grow and develop and swimming lengths, and it's amazing. But I think because she was so touched by the experience of how it opened her up to the fact that she can learn something new, and she's actually offered, and we were working on that before lockdown, so we're doing a presentation for them, where she's willing to sponsor. She works a lot with rural communities. So she sponsored, it sounds silly, but things like they don't have proper toilets, bathrooms. You know, they use what's called long pit toilets, which is basically a hole dug in the ground. So she's gotten involved from that aspect, donating money, building schools. And she offered for us as well, we're doing a presentation for her where she will sponsor a certain amount of students that we can actually bring from the rural areas and teach them basic learn to swim life-saving skills. Because in South Africa as well, free or water, running water is not freely available. So a lot of the rural communities, what their daily routine is to actually take a bucket and go down to the river or the dam or the nearest tap miles away to fill that up and bring that back to their home. And a lot of these people, or children, because a lot of times they send children to do it, they can't swim. So while filling up their bucket, they might fall forward into the river and they can't swim. So a lot of drowning incidents happens in that way. So yeah, we're very excited about that opportunity to really cast that net beyond our own walls and get in the funds to get them goggles, get them swimsuits, teach them the basic, maybe over a 6-week period or whatever, just to get them to a point where they are safe, they can float, and then to rotate them with the next group. So yeah, we're very excited about getting involved with that.
That's awesome.
And then a project that we had in the past was 2 years ago, we got approached by a group called Isimangaliso. They manage the wet park in KwaZulu-Natal. So there's some areas like St. Lucia and Sodwana Bay that fall within that wetland. Mm-hmm. And Sodwana Bay is a very well-known scuba diving destination in South Africa. It's about a 7-hour journey by car if you're driving from Johannesburg. And there's a lot of people in the local community that are employed by the scuba diving operators. And Isimangaliso also employ some of the local people to do things like beach cleanups. And they found that a lot of these people, although they're working in and around water all day long, they actually can't swim. And so they approached us to come and do a water safety workshop. So we traveled down to Sodwana Bay. We accommodated just over 40 people over a 2-day period, and we created 4 stations in a pool, and we basically exposed them to being able to submerge comfortably under the water, being able to float. We practiced throw, don't go with them, so we worked with throw ropes, throwing life jackets so that they could put them on in the water. And then I think probably the highlight out of the 4 stations was teaching them how to snorkel. And the whole idea was that we could possibly identify some of those candidates that were comfortable and stronger in the water and then take them over to start doing things like scuba diving and possibly improving their job situation in Sodwana.
Right.
And it was an incredibly diverse group. We had ladies in their 50s and 60s that have never been in a pool before, but they work on the beach doing cleaning. And then the majority of the group were high school pupils, a mixture of boys and girls. And it was an incredible success. And I think just working with those people for an hour long in the water, taking them through those 4 stations, was a complete shift in their mindset around water. Like Corrine mentioned before, going from absolute fear to now actually going, this is actually fantastic and I'd like to do it again. And then obviously with the young people, trying to encourage them to take on a job like a scuba diving instructor, which ultimately protects the environment. Because if you teach the younger generation to love that environment, they're more likely to preserve that. And that for us is definitely a very important aspect of what we're trying to get across. Is we want people to fall in love with water so that they start protecting it.
That's something I used to say in the Caribbean all the time when somebody has caught a green eel and they have it out. I say, how much do you think that's worth? And they kind of tell me how much they would sell it for. And I go, this many people would pay this much money to see that over and over and over and over again if you had left it where it was.
Yeah.
And that starts to resonate once you start speaking about it that way.
Now,
Yeah.
that's one thing in general that we're very passionate about as well as the environment as a whole. I think recycling is a fairly new concept in South Africa, so that's slowly but surely grown. But we've tried to do things as well where we would sponsor prizes, swim lessons, scuba diving tryouts, that sort of thing, where we get the parents involved and we show them how to build eco bricks. I don't know if you've heard of eco bricks before.
Eco bricks, yes.
Yeah, is taking basically an empty plastic bottle and filling it up with plastic items, that you're basically not using coming out of your own house. And the family that built or created the most amount of eco bricks won the prize. So we had a total of how many?
Oh, goodness me. It was over 70 kilograms worth of plastic.
Yeah, so it was like 400 bottles. But that then in turn gets sponsored to different programs, Roots and Shoots, it was called, where they take the eco bricks, they employ local poor people out of the community, and they teach them how to build furniture out of it, which they then sell as an income for their families. So just that whole sort of paying it forward, we've been blessed with our swim school that we have been successful and we are doing well, but we don't want it to just stop here. We want to pay it forward and we want to involve the community and just share our passion about all of these things with everybody.
Well, what's interesting, what I'm kind of taking from that is the diversity is not only who you serve, but also what you're delivering, because you're actually going well beyond the normal parameters of teaching people to swim. It looks like there are a lot of other stuff that you're kind of pulling in, whether it be the scuba diving aspect and the connections there, to the environmental connections, to the empowerment connections. So, yep.
We try to get as involved as we can if possible. I mean, we've had situations where some of our own students that previously could afford it, that the parents fell ill. They suddenly got cancer or that type of situation, or the parent is in a situation where mom and dad is not together and dad's not paying maintenance, or mom, or whatever the situation is. So we really try to help in every aspect that we can, as far as we possibly can. We try to not stick to one thing. I mean, obviously our passion is water, but when the opportunity arises, and interestingly enough, it's almost like these opportunities seek us out. It's just suddenly you'd read something on social media somewhere, or somebody has a conversation about somebody else that's in a situation, or it's just amazing how these things come up, and it sort of just appeals to the heart, and you're like, I've got to get involved in this, I've got to try and help, I've got to make a difference. And if we're in the position to do that, we like to do that.
Awesome. So I'm going to slowly wrap it up now for at least this portion of it, and then we can keep talking afterwards. But the last
big talk a lot, hey?
No, it's awesome. But the last big thing I wanted to ask you is, do you have any general advice for any businesses or organizations, or specifically in aquatics, who want to be more inclusive, who are actually looking at developing that side of them?
I would say, first of all, open yourself to communication. If you are open to people coming up and asking you questions about projects that they would like for you to get involved with, it will come naturally. Don't close yourself off and say, I only want to do this in my business. Once, as Carien says, once you start putting your feelers out there, it's going to come to you for sure. And the other thing is that I think that every swim instructor obviously inherently loves water. There must have been something in their past that obviously drew them to water and that they were passionate about. And if you start with that as your beginning point, it will naturally start growing. I think with myself and Carien, we obviously both scuba diving instructors. We love the ocean, and so a lot of what we do resonates back to that, is how can we protect the ocean ultimately. So all of these projects like the eco bricks and those type of things, ultimately what you're doing is you're keeping that plastic out of the ocean. So there must be a reason for every swim instructor that has started a swim school, why they fell in love with the water. And that might be a good starting point, because it's something that you're already passionate about. And then you just naturally start building on that.
I just want to add to that as well, to other swim schools across the world, because I mean, obviously, let's be honest about it. We all work hard to earn an income, to pay our bills and take care of ourselves. I mean, that's ultimately one of the big reasons why we start a journey or a job. So if from a financial point of view, people feel, oh, you know, I don't want to get involved in this because it's voluntary and the cost is going to come on to me. You know what, I've always felt that, you know, the energy that you put out there is the energy that comes back to you in life. If you ultimately, if that opportunity crosses your path and you grab it with both hands, even if you're not 100% in the position to volunteer your time or money to travel or whatever the situation is at that specific time, if you do that, it will come back to you. And I honestly feel that our swim school has been blessed, because, you know, you're not doing it in order to be blessed, but it's just an automatic process of, you know, the vibes that you're putting out there in life, it comes back to you. If it's negative things that you're putting out, that's going to come back to you. But if you sow and you take that first step and you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to help, it's going to pay forward. It's going to come back to you, and you're going to be even more blessed, and then be able to help more people. And I honestly think it grows from there. So just take that first step.
And I think that's
not hard. It's not hard to find projects. You only have to look in a 10-kilometer radius of where you live, and you're going to find a group of people that you can reach out to.
I think that's what you're both saying is very much where we can leave it, because that's pretty cool. Thank you guys so much for this. My first time trying to do an interview, so we'll see whether this actually works or not, but might publish it. We'll talk about it later, but thanks so much. And it's great to catch up in any case. Okay. So what I'm going to do now
is lovely talking to you again.
I'm going to stop the recording and then we can keep chatting.